Hey, it's Larry. Welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. Well, it's been a long time. I'm going to tell you a little bit why that was. I think by the first week of the year, the storm will have arrived. I think that's going to involve the banks. We're going to talk about the banks. I think that it's going to involve the bond markets. We've talked about that on this channel. I think it probably will even involve arrests. And I think that's going to lead to riots. But first, let me tell you what we're going to get to. We're going to talk about silver, what I think is going to happen even tonight. I want to make sure I get this out before the markets open in China. I think tomorrow is going to be a blistering day on the American precious metal markets. And I think that this channel has been ahead of the curve in that. You know, it's been a focus. It's an interest of mine. It's a focus. And I want to talk about the dinar and about how everything that I see is leading up to the dinar. I would have never thought it would have taken this long. But let me say, now that it's been this long, I just don't see it going a lot longer. In fact, my brother called me today. We were talking before church, and he goes, "What do you think? What do you think?" And I said, well, I think I'm going to tell people today that I think the dinar is going to be very clearly revealed in the next month and a half, 2 months. I think by the end of February, we're going to either have had it or we're going to know that it's imminent. I got to go with mentor, Dr. List. I got to go to Fiji. And so I was honestly a little nervous about that. And I don't get opportunities like that very often. It seems like about annually. And I did have the availability. I love Dr. List, and I benefited so much, and I'm going to tell you more about Fiji. I could even see someday some of you joining me in Fiji. I want to talk about the 3 Ps that we've talked about a lot on this channel. I want to talk about the prophetic. I want to talk about what professionals are saying. And I want to talk about what God has personally shown me. I think that the storm is close. I still don't think the storm has arrived, but I think this could be the week that the storm arrives.
Here's what this represents. Well, maybe it's the coffee bills. What the storm could be for the coffee before the storm. What the storm is expected. We'll find out.
I think by the first week of the year, the storm will have arrived. I think that's going to involve the banks. We're going to talk about the banks. I think that it's going to involve the bond markets. We've talked about that on this channel. I think it probably will even involve arrests. And I think that's going to lead to riots. And I think that in the middle of all this, it will be the dinar. Then I think that crypto will explode and will be well into initiating, formally the wealth transfer. I've kind of joked around, and it's so different than I thought it would be, but it was hard to put the clues together, but the closer it comes, the easier it is to understand. I want to read these 3 prophecies that I said in the in the December, right before I went to Fiji. I made this recording. It was actually the morning I went to Fiji, and that's why I had to make it in kind of a rough fashion. But I think these things are coming true. I think they aren't true necessarily in the way that you can just read it line by line. But I would say that this was the year, this is the time for these things. On 12/3/05, Kim said, "Before Christmas, there will be an unusual thing that I will do, and the world will look at you and they will say, 'We thought it was the end.'" Now, I think that the first part of that is true. Before Christmas, there was an unusual thing that I will do, and the world will look at you. They will look at you, crazy Christians. What I'm realizing, and here's what I think is going to happen. Christianity is really split. In fact, it's just divided. There's the crazy Christians who believe in the prophetic, and there's really everybody else. And I think God obviously does believe in the prophetic, but I think that God is going to elevate those people of faith, those who believe in prophecy. And obviously we've seen abuse in prophetic people's lives as well. Anybody can fall. But I believe that God is going to bless, and he's going to shine his blessing just throughout Christendom. But I would say not necessarily in the last 50 years so much has God's blessing been poured out on the people of God. Now, Jewish people have always been blessed. You go back to Father Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses. These were all significantly blessed people, that people knew that the God of heaven was shining down on them. They didn't have easy lives, but they were very blessed. And the wisdom of God manifests in people's lives. Look at Solomon. He didn't finish well. I want you to finish well. I want to finish well. But he walked in tremendous blessing. And I think that that's what's, being poured out. Some people in some churches, most churches, struggle with success. They struggle with the idea that godly people would be affluent. But I think that God is choosing even now for many of you to become more influential, and so you're going to have to be more affluent to do that. And then it's not only what you can do, and this is hard for people to take, but this is a total reality. Many of you will be able to do more with what you give than you can with what you live. You can only give so much with what you live, but when you have big resources and you're going to be generous, you can make a huge difference for people around the world in ways that you can't affect anybody in other countries generally, other than what you give. And I think that as you have passion and curiosity about this, you have a desire that's a God-given kingdom desire, but other Christians are going to judge you because they just want to be poor, pathetic Christians, and you don't want to be a rich, arrogant Christian, but you want to be kingdom-minded, where you radically seek and have passion for God, and then you serve God and you have your money serve you. And as you gain wisdom in having your money serve you, it can serve other people as it does what you direct it to do. Before Christmas, there's an unusual thing I will do. The silver market just exploded. If you had silver, it went up 10% in one day. It's just shocking. And I think it's highly likely it might do it again tomorrow, which is Monday. It really begins tonight on the West Coast anyway, because it begins when the markets open. But the world has been using more silver than it has been producing for years. And I'm going to tell you why it's using more than it's producing. It's because the world has believed a lie that this whole green energy movement is like a great thing. And I think that probably makes a lot of you choke. I think we obviously should be good stewards of the world, but we're so stupid if we believe that cow farting is ruining the world. And we believe all these things that these ungodly people in Basel, Switzerland, and the World Economic Forum, the things that they've told us are lies. And yet so many people believe it. Yeah, we should not pollute the world. Yeah, we shouldn't pollute the water. But we've allowed ourselves to believe so many lies. We, in the Western United States, we're tearing down dams, which hydroelectric power is one of the cleanest, most amazing. It needs to be done right. It can definitely be done wrong. There's been examples of it being done wrong, but there's so many things. If you look at Germany, it was an industrial powerhouse through the past 150 years until the last 20 years. And then now it's just struggling so much because it's decommissioned its nuclear sites. It's trying to survive in a cold climate like kind of the Northwest with solar and then wind, and they're not ideally located for either one. And the problem with solar and wind is when they're good, they're good. There are a few nations in the world, like I think Hawaii is probably a pretty good spot when electricity is so expensive there. But I think electricity doesn't need to be so expensive. I think we're going to come into technologies that are going to radically reduce, and this whole world of control where they don't want us to know God, and a lot of Christians believe it. And I think we need to begin to stand up and push back on the culture. But we also can take advantage if you can get your mind around that silver was manipulated by man and the system is about ready to break. It was controlled by London Bullion Market Association, LBMA, in London, and the COMEX, the Commodities Index for Precious Metals in the United States, is two systems that have been designed and utilized and carried out. They've done what they were supposed to do by the people who built them. They've controlled the price of metals when we're so stupid that we believe that they've been revealing the price of metals, and that's not true. And I think also you have to get your mind around that the stock market is also a controlled, manipulated lot. And I think that Trump realizes that. And I think that he's going to do something about it. And I think God is going to do something about it. Let's read this prophecy a third time. Before Christmas, there's going to be an unusual thing I will do, and the world will look at you and they will say, we thought it was the end. We thought the economy would crash. Now, I think that that's what's going to probably happen in the next week or two. We thought the economy would crash. And then God said, watch me now. I will raise up this economy and America will once again rule as they are supposed to. You know, the interesting thing about this is I've shared it before on the channel. I've had a vision of Wall Street absolutely crashing. I've had a vision of the bond market, the money of the world is going to come crashing down where people are not going to be able to borrow money. And I think that that's going to tremendously push down the price of real estate. And I totally can see that as these precious metals rise up, real estate is going to come down. I don't think most people will be able to borrow to buy. And I think that there's going to be opportunities that are going to be just amazing. You know, Sharon of Our Daily Bread, the lady in England or the UK, when I first came into the wealth transfer about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, I saw her recent video at the time that was talking about how people in the wealth transfer are going to be able to go buy houses. They're going to be very affordable for them anytime they want to. And it's really like they just don't know if they want more because they don't know if it's a good thing. And there's only been twice in my life when people did not want houses or people did not want apartment complexes. Yet the people who went there when nobody wanted it, within 5 years, were rewarded tremendously. And it's a great lesson as an investor. I have to tell you, you know, it's really interesting to watch my book. The first one, The Parable of the Dinar, is really selling really well. There's a lot of people buying them. A lot of people got them for Christmas. So you'd be surprised how many people are just engaging in the wealth transfer right now. Like they've never watched. They don't know what's going on. But the silver has totally got their attention because clearly Kim Clement prophesied about silver. But that's only one of the 8 things. Silver and gold are one of the 8 things. And actually he makes prophecies probably about 12 or 13 different items. And we're going to get to see what's going to come. But people are going to have regrets because they don't respond appropriately. And people, I have great news for you about XRP, and I have bad news for you about XRP. And we'll get to that. But long term, medium term, in 3 months, I think your XRP will do fantastic. In the next 3 weeks, I would not have XRP on margin right now. I'll tell you that. I think it could really, you know, just temporarily. Am I saying to sell it? No, I'm not. I'm not selling my XRP. I'm holding on to it, but I'm preparing for it to go down, and I just want it on my cold wallet where I can't lose it. And I think that there's going to be opportunities, and some people are going to jump in late and they're going to be chasing it up. I've actually had a lot of friends who have jumped into silver at over $60, and they're super happy they did because it's already gone to 80, but it's sad that they didn't jump in when it was in the 20s like it was so much in the last couple of years. think it was 27 even a year ago today. I think silver is the perfect thing for somebody who still has a whole bunch of money, or they have a 401k and they don't want to take any risks, they cannot afford to lose it. I don't think you can lose it in silver even today. But I think if you need to make the absolute most that you can, I think that silver offers, you know, a 10x, a 20x. I might be optimistic for a little bit more, but that's, you know, that's crazy. And in my life, I've not seen 20x investments, at least none that I've known people in droves. But now I know a lot of people in silver who are going to get more than 20x because of what I think is coming, what has come, what will come. But I think that pales in comparison to what's going to happen in crypto. And so a wise investor jumps in when the crowds are going this way, you go this way. 99 people are going this way, that leaves great opportunity back there. I'm still waiting for XRP to really adjust. I've had this money sitting on the side. I've got my lump sum of XRP and I'm not selling it, and it's a good amount. But I think at the price I paid less than what it currently is available, but I did pay over $1, which kind of made me mad, because if I would have just done it before or after, I could have paid under 50 cents. I think that is going to be for a split second available again. And, you know, you might go, well, prophets aren't saying that. Well, they did say it, and I still am holding out for that. Am I holding everything out? I mean, you've got to have wisdom where you jump in, and maybe you take 2/3 of what you've got and you establish yourself, and then 1/3, if you think things are still going to adjust down, then you jump in. When it comes to the dinar, this crash that God showed me prophetically, that Kim Clement talks about on 12/3/05, there's a banking crash, there's a banking system that shall crash. Now, Kim Clement in 2005 prophesied about 2 different banking crashes. We've seen one, it happened in 2008. But this one we didn't see. There's a banking system that shall crash, and they shall say, but it is so big, how can this happen in America? And God said it shall crash, and there shall be a shaking just for a short moment. But there's something called a Damascus Road conversion of 3 major networks in the country. You know, Trump has been talking about how horrible the New York Times is and how bad the fake news. You know, we've all gotten used to that over the last 5 years of Trump talking about fake news. I believe that our news system is literally propaganda to get you to think the way that you think. And if everybody on the news was piling into metals would have exploded a long time ago. And it's interesting that the talking heads of wise investment about metals are talking about the Asian guy and the Comex Visigoths, the channel that I recommended early on when there was only a few hundred subscribers. And those channels have been absolutely amazing. Have they got everything right? No, I don't think they've got everything right, because I think their goal of them is more propaganda. But literally, it's propaganda of the truth instead of propaganda of a lie. And I actually think it's probably white hat initiated. I don't think people are doing it or have the ability to have that kind of information and passion to do it in such a timely manner in real time. I don't think it's profit. I think that they're trying to shift the culture of investing, and they're teaching us why and what's happening behind the scenes. So I think they are shifting the information that people have so they can make good decisions. And I think that we're going to see the news, because of what President Obama allowed, the news can have a propaganda angle. They're not required to tell the truth. And so I think these channels are serving the truth. I'm not saying that every single detail is true. The pundits, the talking heads, of metals are criticizing these channels, but they're saying they're honestly almost always right. They don't give specific instances of where they're ever wrong, but they just keep warning you. And I think that's true. You should be careful. And so I think that the storm is going to erupt next week. The storm, that when Trump drew the Q in the Oval Office.
You know what this represents? Well, maybe it's the coffee bills. What the form could be the coffee from the storm. What the form is expected? You'll find out.
He goes, "Did you hear that?" to the press, and they go, "What's that, Mr. President?" He goes, do you know what that is?" And they go, "No, we don't know, Mr. He goes, "I think it's the calm before the storm." And they go, "What storm, Mr. President?" He goes, "Well, you'll see. The whole thing hasn't come down yet, but I think we're about ready to see the storm." And I think it's going to be arrests. I think the banks are going to fail. I think it may not be a lot of American banks, but I think it will maybe start in Europe. I think especially Swiss banks are really messed up, and I think that we're going to see banks fail in the next. I think they might already be insolvent. I don't know how they've kept them up, but what I learned in the last month is that derivatives are the root of manipulating prices down, but derivatives can also be used to artificially prop the stock market up. And I think that we've seen the stock market artificially propped up and metals propped down, and I think that the whole thing is going to come undone. And I think that arrests are finally going to happen. And I think it's going to lead to riots. And I've told the story a number of times on the channel about how before the 2020 election, I saw that Trump was literally going to win the 2020 election. I saw that Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota all went to Trump, even though I don't believe that 2020 showed that they did. And even in 2024, they didn't necessarily go to him, but I believe they did really. I think that they really did, and I think that he's unwinding that. But I think that God is going to use Donald Trump to use Tina Peters to be, it's going to be quite a spectacle that's going to happen as the 2020 election is going to be part of the circus that's going on. And we're going to find out that it's not only in America. I think my state, in Washington State, has been one of the most aggressive cheating states. We were one of the first people to do motor voter, where mail-in ballots, and now Washington State on all elections has only done mail-in ballots. But it's interesting how the federal government is using governmental pressure on our left-leaning liberal state government, and they're really bringing the heat out here, and they're really bringing it in California, and I think it's awesome. And another dream I had after I saw that Trump was going to win, I saw that there was fighting in the streets. I saw it was happening in hundreds of places. It wasn't a huge group. It was uniformed men were initiating violence with guns, and I saw the U.S. military come in and deal with it very efficiently and very quickly. And I think that when the storm arrives, that's one of the last things. Now you say, well, Larry, you didn't know that when you talked about it the other times, because, when you have this dream, I had this dream in 2019, 6 years ago, that I saw Trump winning, which I could believe because he had won in 2016, so I thought he'd probably win 2020. I was sure that he would. I was shocked when he didn't, because I even had the dream, like so many prophets, prophesied. But then I saw this fighting in the streets. I saw, shooting. I mean, guns, people getting killed. I saw all kinds of people getting killed in this very short dream. And now I see it's tied to a recent Supreme Court. It all kind of makes sense. I can see that Trump is going to sign the Insurrection Act because of the two big cities on each side of me. I've got Portland an hour away this way and Seattle 2 hours away that way. And I think that it depends which news you read, because you probably saw if you watch mainstream media, that Trump can't call out the National Guard, but the conservative justices said Trump has the ability to sign the Insurrection Act and use full-blown military to restore peace and order. So, the weekend warriors, the National Guard, maybe they're not quite up to the challenge of really advanced rioting, because I believe the advanced rioters are going to formally have guns. Like, I think that they're literally, it could be horrendous, except I think that Trump knows. And, you can check this out. There's even a law that he made that by January 1st, every state has to have a couple hundred rapid response military in every state that can just put out these spots. So what that means to me is the timing was always about 2026. And I wanted to believe so bad. I mean, I started investing, I think, in 2021 in Dinar, I think, was the first time, and crypto. I think I started with crypto before I got into Dinar. But I just kept believing, and different people on TV would lead you to believe. But Kim Clement, when he wrote about it, he said it's going to accompany the Dow racing to 20,000. Right now, the Dow, last week, I think the Dow hit peak. I think it hit 47,000. But it's in a very precarious state, and I do think it's going to come down. Another thing that's going to precede the dinar is the financial system of the Middle East is going to collapse. And, fuel is amazingly cheap. Even here in Washington, some of you guys are getting down to $2.09 or even $1.99. We're down to where we paid $3.19 at the cheapest place between Portland and Seattle. We went to Seattle last week for before Christmas. And so even our gas prices, we have, other than California, we have the most expensive gas in the nation. Yet even ours is getting down to $3.50. 360, which we're happy about that, but that's not good for the oil countries that are basically Arabs, the Middle East, and so they're going to have problems. They're going to have a crash of their financial system, and that's going to usher in the dinar. And I think the dinar is then going to absolutely explode metals, and especially crypto. And because metals are getting so difficult to find, I think I'm changing my perspective on what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to, with my dinar proceeds, I'm going to get it as quickly as I can out of the fiat-based system, and I want to get it into crypto. And I think that basically that's what people are going to come to. I mean, if I can buy metals and get them in a segregated location that I'm confident, but there's none that are really close to me, so I'm going to have to do my homework. And so really that's why I think I'm just going to move my dinar proceeds to a number of cold wallets and wait for XRP to catch up. But I do have a couple. I have some SHIB, I have some LONC, and because of the prophetic nature of those things, I do think they're going to do good. I want to tell you about one dream a guy put out. His channel is called Love is God 7, and he put this video out, and I'll show a portion of it. And he had 3 different dreams in this video, and he didn't say that they exactly all happened at the same time, but I think they're going to all happen at the same time. And I do think, now he has a lot of dreams. I'm not going to say every single thing that he said is true. I just think that this one I'm very interested in. He talks about silver at $360 an ounce. He talks about gold at $5,000 an ounce. And then he talks about the government doing something. He says the government switches on a machine and it pretty much makes gold and silver unavailable. It's like you can't, it's unobtainable. And He didn't say that they all happened at the same time, but I think they're all going to happen at the same time. I think it was really an amazing video that he made. And, you know, it was super crazy. I don't think that gold was even $1,000. And 7 years ago, I think that probably silver was $12 or $14 an ounce. So for silver to be $360 an ounce, even now, for silver to be 360s, people can start to begin to fathom it. But most people think, oh, silver is overbought, it's going to go back down. No, there's a structural flaw. Right at this time that technology is taken off like crazy. I mean, even Elon Musk is texting or Xing, whatever you tweeting, about how this isn't good, about the way that the silver shortage, there's a deficit. And, you know, we've got this green energy lies that there's enough truth in it that it's not all a lie. But we should absolutely be obtaining all the gold and silver mines that we've got. But under this green energy revolution, you can't disturb the soil. You can't, you know, for stormwater and all these other things, the government historically over the last 15, 20 years has just made it impossible to do mining. It's one of the hardest things to do. You know, manufacturing is very difficult because they want to get electricity prices so high that we can't compete. When I was in high school, really these people said, hey, America, you're going to stop manufacturing stuff and you're just going to start providing services and it'll go great. And you know what? It went a lot better than I would have thought that it would have, because we used to manufacture everything, and the stuff made in China and the stuff made in India was just so bad. Like, you know, it was just the cheapest and worst stuff. Now China makes some of the best stuff in the world, and we don't make that stuff. You know, the stuff in the dollar store, nothing except for some of the food is made in America. But Trump has got a passion with these tariffs to bring it back to where manufacturing is going to be a thing again. And if you're like me and you feel like you have a destiny to make a difference, when I have an excess of resources with Dinar, if industrial land really falls, and I think it will, I think when the Dinar comes in, it'll be, and the bond markets have failed and stock markets have gone down, I think it'll be really easy to negotiate on really large pieces of land. I think everybody who's secular will be wanting to hoard cash, and I do think that crypto will be probably the wisest thing. But if you have more Dinar resources or Dong or whatever you have in that regard, I actually have thought about buying some really large industrial sites, because I do believe that we're going to go back to building our manufacturing base, and I think we're going to have an amazing future. But I think it's going to be a very difficult few years. I think I've seen it. Other people are talking about it. I think 2026 is going to be a rough year. You want to buckle up, Buttercup, and get ready. But for those of us who are prepared, it's going to be probably the most amazing, awesome. As God increases your affluence, you're going to have more influence. And we're going to be able to make a difference in the kingdom of God as you utilize the money that God's going to give you, extra money. And so I'm just going to talk about, after this money comes in, what should you do? What are people? It's really interesting. I'm probably like your feed. You're seeing these people that are just giving all this advice. I've seen 2 or 3 videos where these guys, and they're very sincere, and I don't want to criticize them, except I exactly disagree with them. So I guess I love their heart. I don't approve of their message. And they say, don't tell anyone. And I think they're half right. I don't think you tell people that you've done so well in your neighborhood, in your, maybe even in your family. I mean, you're probably going to tell them to a degree in your family. And, you know, what I've learned, I've had some huge wins in life. And I've watched my brother have huge wins in life. I mean, my brother played pro ball for 12, 15 years. So I watched him just win after win after win. And I wasn't winning at that time. I was struggling and I was losing. And so people who are struggling or losing don't want to hear about your winnings. It's very difficult for them. And so, but you know who wants to hear about your winnings is other people who are winning. And what you need to do is you need to get advice. I mean, I'm going to go back and give you some of the rough advice that I've learned over life. Now, I don't take any financial advice from anybody who's worth less than me. And so I would encourage you to do the same thing. If you come in the next 2 months into millions of dollars, so many of you on this channel are going to be worth more than 10 million. You just won't believe it. And so I don't think that you go down, to the gas station or Lowe's or Home Depot or, Waitress or whatever, you're not going to get advice there. You need to have advice from people who are worth more than that. Now, the people who will be most interested in your new money will be the other people who have a ton of new money. And I feel like literally one of the things that I'm supposed to do is get you together. I'm not going to get you together so I can make a bunch of money off you. I don't want to do that. But it will cost money because you're going to be able to afford it. We'll go to nice places. I already had a nice place reserved in Florida for the second week of January, but I did end up canceling that because it would be ironic if if this thing does go off the first week and we could have hit it in the second week, but everybody would have had such a hard time without practice, without notice to get down there. But I really want to tell you, I think you need to get yourself around other people. I wouldn't tell most people that you have done so well. I think for security, for peace of mind, and when you give, you don't need to give. You should, in fact, the Bible says don't give. Your left hand should know what your right hand's doing. So there's people who are going to be in need, and if you give and everybody knows it was you, then they're going to keep coming back to you, and that creates kind of an odd situation. But you need to put yourself around people who can help you with the new challenges that you've got. It's like you're a new high level of mountain climber and you need to hang out with other mountain climbers. And as you all have passion and interest and go together and then have other people speak into your lives that are godly and bring a perspective, it's going to help you tremendously. And so you need to find new friends that are where you're at or where you will be, and then you need to begin to do life together with them. Am I saying that you throw away your old friends? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying don't get financial advice from people who are not ahead of you. That's just what I've learned. I only take financial advice. And the ironic thing is the people who want to talk the most are people who are doing well or they think they're doing well. And they probably know how to make a lot of money with their job or whatever, but that's not your future. When you come in and you're worth 10, 20, 30 million dollars, you don't have a job anymore. Your job is to steward your money, and your goal needs to be seek first the kingdom of God. You can't serve God and money, so you're going to serve God, and your money's going to serve you. And you need to learn how to tell your money what to do. You need to have other people show you how to make their money do what you need to do. And Kim Clement has provided an amazing roadmap that we'll talk about when we get together on these things. And so what's it going to look like, Larry? Well, I think it's going to be a series of probably 3-day, 2-night events where we'll be hanging out in really nice accommodations and having some assignments, but just having a whole lot of downtime to talk to people and be able to make plans and think it through. I mean, where are you going to live with this newfound success? Where are you going to travel? What are you going to do for the kingdom? I mean, I was candidly having a conversation with my kids about our net worth is going to rise an enormous percentage. And I said to my son, it's going to be a challenge to give, these are real numbers that you're going to be wrestling with it. How do you skillfully give away an extra $20,000 or $30,000 a month? That's not easy to do. It's easy, everybody wants it, but are you going to regret how you give it? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to lean into that. We're going to pray about it. And I believe that God is going to encourage you as you come into this. So I want you to be excited. I want you to be encouraged. I think it's going to be amazing. I think we're almost there. I think this thing is going to explode. I'm going to read this prophecy from Kim Clement. 12/31/05. Interesting. 20 years ago this week. This nation must recover everything that it lost, and this shall take place in a 4-year period, says the Lord. For God says, now is the time for me to pay back, and your prosperity has just begun. It's a very clear verse that the wealth transfer is going to last for 4 years, and there's numerous other times that Kim prophesied that from God. He also says the 8 wells of blessing are going to take 1 year. I think obviously precious metals has raised its head. We've seen XRP raise its head. It's going to be very interesting, but they go up, and precious metals hasn't come down, but XRP went up and then it came back down. But it's showing you that it's real. And so have faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Get ready. If you believe in the dinar, and you haven't bought some yet, there's going to come a time, I think, in the next 6 or 7 weeks, that if you don't have it, you should have had it. I'm not buying any more. I've got as much as I can justify, and I'm not buying any more silver. I'm leaning towards the other wells now, and we're negotiating on a piece of land, because we found a piece of land that I think would make sense for us in the long haul. And so dream the dreams that God has given you and lean into Him. And these are exciting times we're living in. I'll be available and online a lot more in coming weeks. Have a great week. Bye.